Carol, we're going to do the second one together, right? The minor variance and the consent.
So we are live on YouTube, just to let you know.
Are we all set to start?
We're good on my end, and maybe we'll just see. I think Kara was contacting some of the applicants.
Oh, okay.
Where
All right,
you
just
were.
give me a thumbs up or something then.
Yeah.
Okay, I have emails from them both. I think they're, see if they come in. They might have had the wrong email address, Zoom address.
Okay, all set. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you to the Town of Fort Erie Committee of Adjustment meeting of March 18th, 2021. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. I now call this meeting to order. First, I'd like to introduce to you the committee members and staff. Committee member Ken Burden, committee member Dave Gianfrancisco, Secretary Treasurer Kara Rach, who will be recording the minutes of tonight's meeting, and Mackenzie Cece, meeting host, who is doing the background technical duties. And my name is Terry Moore, and I'll be chairing tonight's meeting. To those members of the public who may be participating electronically in this public meeting portion of tonight's meeting, you may wish to put your view on gallery view by clicking the top right corner from speaker view. I also ask that you are mindful of background noise for the duration of the meeting. Please also note that participating members of the public will remain in a virtual waiting room via telephone or electronically until they are called upon during the public meeting. This is a statutory public meeting under the Planning Act for the purposes of considering both minor variances and consent applications. Members of the committee have been provided with all the written comments received by agencies and the public prior to the meeting. Committee members are also asked to mute their microphones until you are asked to speak. Please raise your hand if you would like to speak and vote by raising your hand. The purpose of the meeting is to obtain input from residents relative to the application. Those participating online via Zoom will be asked to raise their virtual hand when they wish to speak. On a computer, you may do so by clicking on participants in the bottom center of the screen and then by clicking raise hand. On a mobile device, you can tap more in the bottom right and then tapping raise hand. You will then be brought into the meeting by staff. You can then unmute yourself and start your video by using the buttons on your screen. If you are participating by phone and you wish to raise your hand, press *9 and you will be unmuted by staff. Next, we will hear from the applicant or agent, then from those in support or opposition to the application or ask questions. We ask that each attendee keep their comments to under 10 minutes to allow all attendees an opportunity to speak. Applicants and attendees are advised that they are free to leave the webinar once a decision has been made on their application. Each application will proceed in the following order. Secretary Treasurer will summarize purpose and effect of application and any comments received. Applicant called upon to speak and make further comments if they have any. Committee members will then ask questions of the applicant. The public will be asked to speak one at a time and to state their full name and address for the record, any comments they may have towards the application. Chair will close the application once all comments have been heard. Committee members will make a decision on the application, approved, refused, or deferred, and state if any conditions apply. Please address your comments and questions directly through the chair. Each application will be heard in the order in which it appears on the agenda. The notice of decisions will be provided to all applicants stating the outcome of the hearing and any conditions of approval if required. Please note that correspondence and comments received this evening are restricted to the matters of the Committee of Adjustment and Planning Act. In regards to this application this evening, the Committee of Adjustment will have due regard for the provisions of Section 45 and Section 53 of the Ontario Planning Act as amended. A 20-day appeal period exists for each application heard this evening. Final appeal dates are noted on the notice of decision and are available by requesting a copy in writing. I will begin by asking the committee members present if they have any conflicts of interest with respect to any of the applications to be heard tonight. Ken?
I do not, Mr. Chair.
Dave?
I do not.
And I do not. I now ask the Secretary Treasurer if notice of this meeting was properly given in accordance with the provisions of the Ontario Planning Act.
Yes, it was.
And have you received any requests for adjournment or withdrawal respecting any of tonight's application?
No, we have not.
Okay, I will now proceed with the first application of the meeting. So I call minor variance file A1421, 0 Birdie Street, and ask staff to please bring the applicant into the webinar to participate.
Hello, good evening. Oh, sorry.
There we go.
A little hiccup into video. I hope you can hear me good. Gentlemen, ladies.
Mr. Krizak, are you prepared to continue?
Yes, I
tonight?
am. Yes. Yes, I am.
All right, thank you. Okay, Kara, could you read a summary of the related correspondence and comments received, please?
The purpose and effect of this application is to request a decreased interior side yard setback, increased lot coverage for a proposed two-story dwelling. The application also proposes a reduced interior side yard setback to two detached accessory buildings, a garage, and a workshop. The subject property is designated environmental protection rural in the town's official plan. The environmental protection is reflective of the subject property formally being identified as provincially significant wetlands under the regulation of the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority. At the time of writing this report, there had been no comments received by the public. The Ontario Planning Act provides that a minor variance must meet the following four tests to be considered minor and supportable. Test 1, is the variance minor in nature? The reduced interior side yard setback to the dwelling, increased lot coverage for the dwelling, and reduced interior side yard to the detached accessory buildings are considered minor in nature as the proposed setbacks are adequate for maintenance, access, and drainage in the east side yard for single detached dwellings and will not result in any undue massing impacts on the parcel. Is the proposed variance considered desirable for the appropriate use and development of the land and buildings? The subject property is an existing undersized lot with relatively small lot area for a parcel with rural zoning. The size of the property limit is in its use for agricultural purpose. Use of the property for residential development is appropriate and desirable, subject to the review of the Niagara region with respect to the private services. The proposed variances are consistent with a rural residential property and are in character with other similarly sized parcels in the area along Birdie Street and Sunset Drive. Test 3. Does the proposal meet the general intent of the zoning bylaw? The 3 minor variances for reduced interior side yard to the dwelling, increased lot coverage for the dwelling, and reduced interior side yard to the detached accessory buildings do meet the intent of the zoning bylaw, as the proposed setbacks are adequate and sufficient to maintain access and drainage on the property for the future dwelling. Test 4. Does the proposal meet the general intent of the official plan? The subject property is interpreted to be designated as rural. The environmental protection land use designation will be removed via future housekeeping amendment to the official plan. The official plan permits development of residential dwellings on rural land, provided that there is sufficient lot area to accommodate a private water supply and a sustainable private sewage disposal system, subject to the approval of the Niagara region. If a septic system approval is obtained, this proposal will meet the general intent of the official plan. Planning staff note that the subject property is identified as being within an area of archaeological potential, according to Schedule D of the town's official plan. Staff have not received comments from Niagara region at the time of writing the report. However, it is expected that an archaeological assessment will be required. Based on the above comments, planning staff support the requested variances outlined in this application, conditional upon the applicant submitting a stage 1 archaeological assessment. There were no comments received from infrastructure. The building department did state that the reduced side yard setback for the accessory may be acceptable, provided that the drainage swale is not negatively impacted and the structures are located outside of the swale. I think that's just noted for the applicant to note in his development proposal. No comments from fire, no comments from the MTO. The region did provide comments as well, which had been provided to, and I believe the applicant's been working extensively with the region on this, actually. They did also request the archaeological assessment be submitted, stage 1, and that would conclude our comments on that report.
Thank you. Mr. Kurzak, would you like to comment on any of the correspondence received?
The only one comment I would have is the archaeological study, as per the report received from Niagara region. The stage 1 study is required as per this report. However, I would like to discuss, and I would like to have make that comment that this is the 4th property basically developed at that site. Outside of the fact that the site was developed from the original native conditions, and I assume that prior bringing a fill to that site, significant fill of that archaeological study or similar basically study would have been developed prior my application. So I would just like to basically have that comment and potentially discuss with the planning department further on this requirement.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the members have any questions of the applicant? Ken?
I do not have any questions, Mr. Chair.
David, do you have any questions?
No, I do not, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Just my one question is, you are aware that the other properties that were built have had archaeological studies done. You were aware of that, correct?
No, I'm not necessarily aware of that. So if they have done, I just want to basically, discuss this. Wouldn't that archaeological study basically cover all these 8 lots across that development? So if that was done first time, I mean, that would be almost any significant information would be basically provided through that survey in that specific basically lot. That's only my concern.
Okay,
That would be just redundant report.
right, okay. Is there anyone in the audience who would wish to comment? Please raise your virtual hand if you would wish to.
Yeah, so for those joining by computer, laptop, or mobile device, you can raise your virtual hand by pressing the raise hand button. So if you click on the participants icon at the bottom center of your computer or your phone screen and then click at the bottom of the window, you'll then see the raise hand button. And if you're joining by telephone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. So I'll just give everyone an opportunity. Chair, I'm seeing no one that wishes to speak to this application.
Okay, thank you. Do the members have any additional questions to ask the applicant? No?
No further question.
Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed, and I would ask the members to express their views on this application. Ken?
Chair, I'll be voting in favor of approving this minor variance. It meets the planning test for minor variance, and the applicant is agreeable to the conditions that have been put forth in the reports.
Thank you, David.
I will also be in favor of it. I agree with Ken's comments and I don't have any issues with it.
Okay, thank you. Could I get a motion then on this application? Ken?
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion that in consideration of all the written and oral submissions, that minor variance file A14/21 or 0 to 11954 Birdie Street meets the Planning Act tests for minor variance, and that it be approved with the stated conditions.
Okay, is there a seconder to that?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Okay, thank you. Your application has been approved. You will receive written notice of the committee's decision, and the decision will become final so long as no appeals are received within 20 days of the notice. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Are we all set? The second application tonight is consent file B1021 and minor variance files A16 and A17. Address is 20 Edward Street, and the applicant is Jordan Maloney. Is Mr. Maloney here?
Yeah, yes, he is.
Okay.
Hello.
Okay, thank you. Would Secretary Treasurer please read a summary of the related correspondence comments received, please?
I certainly will. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm going to read both consent and minor variance together, and then we'll proceed with
Perfect.
comments. This consent application proposes the creation of a new lot for a future development of a residential dwelling on Part 1. The retained lot, municipally known as 20 Edward Avenue, will continue its use as a residential dwelling. The R2 zoning requires a minimum of 15 meters of lot frontage for interior lots and 510 square meters for lot area. Both Part 1 and Part 2 meet the lot frontage requirement, but are slightly deficient in lot area at 497.1 square meters. As noted, the approval of minor variances to permit the reduced lot area will be a condition of this consent. Creation of an infill residential lot in the urban area is supported by provincial, regional, and town planning policy and is considered good planning. Planning staff note that approval of a deeming bylaw will be required to sever the land as proposed. This will be a condition of the consent. Planning staff also note that the approval of the deeming bylaw will be required to sever the land as proposed to allow the merging of the underlying whole lots of the plan of subdivision. Planning staff have no objection to the consent application subject to the following conditions. Approval of minor variance files A16 and 17, approval of the deeming bylaw, 5% cash in lieu of parkland dedication, removal of any accessory buildings on Part 1, that a reference plan be submitted, and the final consent certificate fee be submitted to the town. Infrastructure had no objections. but the conditions are as follows: that $500 will be made for one tree, that an overall lot grading plan for both parts 1 and 2 is submitted by the applicant owner for review and approval, and that the applicant owner is to pay $950 for the installation of one streetlight on Edward Avenue. No comments from building or fire or the drainage assistant or from the MTO or Cogeco. That concludes your consent comments. The minor variance, the purpose and effect of the application is to request a reduction to the minimum lot area to facilitate a severance application associated with this file. A variance is also requested to permit encroachment on the existing deck into the interior side yard of the new proposed lot line. The Planning Act states that the minor variance must meet the following 4 tests to be considered minor and supportable. Is the variance minor in nature? Is the proposed variance considered desirable for the appropriate use and development of land and buildings? Does the proposal meet the general intent of the zoning bylaw? And does the proposal meet the general intent of the official plan? Planning staff have commented that all 4 tests are met by this application and they have no objections. No comments from infrastructure. The MPCA had no comments on the application, nor did the MTO nor Cogeco. And that concludes.
Thank you. Mr. Maloney, do you have
9
any
conditions, sorry.
I'm sorry. Mr. Maloney, do you have any comment you'd like to make on any of the correspondence received?
No, the only thing I guess I'd be curious about is the cost of a streetlight. I didn't know that was part of it. That was the only one I was confused on.
That's policy. If there is no street lights on the street, when there's a severance, then it has to be added. And it's a set fee of $950.
Okay, I was just curious because there's not a single streetlight on my street except for Adelaide.
You know, that's why it's requested. So. Anyway.
Okay, no, that's what taxes were for.
Do the committee members have any questions of Mr. Maloney? Dave?
No, I do not.
Ken?
I do not.
And I do not. Is there? Where am I here? Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment? Please raise your virtual hand.
Sure, I'll take a look to see if there's anyone that wishes to speak to this application. Chair, I'm seeing no one that wishes to speak to this application.
Okay, then I will declare the public hearing closed, and I'll ask the members to express their views on this application. David, if you wish to go first.
I'll be in favor of both the consent file and the minor variance. It meets the 4 tests and I don't have any issues with it.
All right, thank you, Ken.
Mr. Chair, I'll also be voting in favor of the applications. It does meet the Planning Act criteria and also the official plans.
Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion now.
I'll put a motion forward that minor variance file number A1620 and A1721 be accepted with the conditions set forth in the files from the town.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Just
Okay,
for clarification, did you say B10 as well?
No, I'm gonna do
Consent?
that right. I'll do that right now.
Okay. First.
And I'll put a motion forward that consent file B1021 be accepted also with the conditions set forth in the files.
I'll second the motion.
all in favor? Okay, thank you. Your applications have been approved. So you receive written notice of committee's decision, and the decision will become final so long as there's no appeals received within 20 days of the notice. So thank you very much for appearing.
Thank you very much.
We lost Kara.
I am still here.
Oh, that's okay.
It's a magic trick.
Okay, we'll continue on. The next file is file A1521, 846 West Avenue. The owner is Rachel Van Eken, and the applicant is Ron Van Eken. Is Mr. Van Eken available?
He's just coming in now.
Okay.
I'll just get him set up.
Oh,
Afternoon, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much. And to pronounce my name is Van Eycken. It's
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
Dutchman back in the Dutchman in the early 50s. They took that Y, the IJ, and they turned it into a Y, and that's what happened. So if they would have left it an IJ, it probably would have been more pronounceable. But that's what
Did you ever
Sorry
ask
about
why? Oh, no.
happened.
That's a
I've been
bad
called so many things.
Okay, thanks. Are you ready to proceed tonight, sir?
Yes, sir, I am. And thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay. Would the Secretary Treasurer please read a summary of the related correspondence and comments, please?
Yes. The purpose and effect of this application is to permit a detached accessory structure to a dwelling in the front yard. The structure was constructed without a building permit and is intended for use of storage purposes only, and no human habitation will occur. The Ontario Planning Act provides that a minor variance must meet the following four tests to be considered minor and supportable. Is the minor variance minor in nature? The requested variance is considered minor in nature. According to the applicant's sketch, the structure in question extends 2.7 meters beyond the front of the dwelling into the front yard. Planning staff have visited the subject property and note that the accessory structure does not have a perceptible impact on the streetscape along West Avenue and appears ancillary in use. Is the proposed variance considered desirable and appropriate? The subject structure was constructed without a permit. However, planning staff note that the land use designation and zoning of the property permit accessory structures to dwellings. Staff note that the area is lightly developed. The location of the structure is appropriate as it does not significantly impact the streetscape or have a negative impact to adjacent parcels. This variance is desirable as it will bring the existing structure into compliance. The owner is required to obtain the necessary building permits for the structure. Does the proposal meet the general intent of the zoning bylaw? The general intent of the regulations that limit the location of accessory buildings to the side or rear yards is to ensure that the accessory buildings remain ancillary in appearance to the main use and maintain the streetscape along the road. This proposal meets this intent. The structure in question is 1 story in height, smaller than the main dwelling, and maintains an ancillary appearance. The extension of the building into the front yard does not negatively impact the streetscape. The urban residential land use designation permits accessory structures to dwellings. This proposal meets the intent of the official plan. Based on the above comments, planning staff support the requested variance. No comments received from infrastructure, from building, from fire, from MTO, and the region actually did an assessment on the private sewage sector system and have no objections to the proposed minor variance as well. And that concludes.
Okay, thank you. Sir, do you have any comments you'd like to make on anything you've heard here?
No, sir.
Okay, do the committee members have any questions of the applicant? Ken,
I do not, Mr. Chair.
David?
Do not as well.
And I have no questions as well. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment? Please raise your virtual hand now, please.
Chair, I'm seeing no one that wishes to speak to this application.
Okay, thank you. Then I'll declare the public hearing portion of this closed, and I'd ask the members to express their views on the application. Ken?
Mr. Chair, I'll be voting in favor of approving the minor variance application. It's an existing situation, and it does meet the planning test for a minor variance.
Okay, thank you, David.
I will also be in favor of it. It meets the four tests and have no issues with it.
Okay, thank you. Could I then have a motion? Ken?
Mr. Chair, I would be pleased to make a motion that in consideration of all the written and oral submissions, that minor variance file A 15/21 for 846 West Avenue meets the Planning Act test for minor variance and that it be approved.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Okay, thank you. Your application has been approved, sir. You will receive written notice of the committee's decision, and the decision will become final so long as there's no appeals received within the 20 days of the notice. So thank you very much for appearing.
Thank you, folks. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Our next application is Minor variance file A1821. The address is 2331 Stanley Park Road, and the applicant is Cider Brothers Builders Limited, and I believe the agent is Sean Cider. Is that correct? Afternoon, Mr. Sutter. Are you ready to proceed?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. I would ask Kara then to read all correspondence for this application.
The purpose and effect of this application is to decrease the interior side yard setback to an existing 2.5-story dwelling in order to permit an addition. Variances are also requested to recognize the existing height of the dwelling and detached garage. No public comments were received at the time of writing this report. The Ontario Planning Act provides that the 4 tests must be met to be considered minor and supportable. Is the variance minor in nature? The proposal to decrease the interior side yard setback to the southwest side yard to 4.5 meters is minor. Staff notes that the proposed decrease is not significantly different than the existing setback of 4.69 meters, and sufficient space will remain in the side yard to provide adequate spacing from the dwelling to the southwest and to maintain room for maintenance, access, and drainage along the side of the dwelling. The variance for increased height is minor as it recognizes an existing condition. The variance for increased height of an accessory building is minor as it recognizes an existing condition. Continued use of the property for residential purposes and the proposal to construct additions to an existing dwelling are appropriate and desirable. The requested variance for reduced interior side yard setback will not result in negative impacts on the adjacent property to the southwest. Does it meet the general intent of the zoning bylaw? The general intent of the interior side yard regulations for dwellings is to ensure that undue massing impacts do not occur to adjacent parcels and that there is sufficient space for maintenance, access, and drainage in the side yard. This proposal meets this intent. The decrease to the side yard setback is small and not anticipated to cause undue massing impacts on the adjacent property. Adequate space will remain available in the side yard for maintenance, access, and drainage. The general intent of the regulations that limit the height of dwellings is to limit massing impacts on adjacent properties and to maintain the character of the neighborhood. This proposal meets the intent as the height is an existing condition that will not be made worse by the proposed construction. No negative impacts or massing to the neighborhood are anticipated. The general intent of regulations that limit the height accessory structures to dwellings is to ensure they remain ancillary in appearance to the main dwelling. This proposal meets this intent as the height of the accessory building is an existing situation and lesser in height than the main dwelling itself. Does it meet the official plan? Continued use of this property for the residential purpose is permitted by the rural residential land use designation. Based on the above comments, planning staff support the requested variances. No comments from infrastructure, no comments from building, no comments from fire or the MTO. The region did review the application for the private sewage system, and they have no objections to the proposed minor variance application, provided a permit is applied for to install a new septic system. The NPCA also provided comments. They have no objection to the application as long as the following condition is met: that a grading plan is submitted to the NPCA showing the total limit of construction. If the grading is within the NPCA regulated shoreline area, a work permit will be required to be obtained from the NPCA. That concludes your minor variance application with the 2 conditions from the region and the NPCA as noted.
Thank you. Mr. Sutter, do you want to comment on the application or any of the correspondence?
I don't have any comments, but if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
All right, thank you. Dave, do you have any questions?
No, I do not.
Ken?
No, I do not.
I just have one. I'm just wondering about the new septic system.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a surprise. Like that septic system is not that old, but I thought, Kara, when we talked that I would just have to apply to see if the current septic system is acceptable or not.
I see.
Did you speak with the NPCA about it?
I sent everything into the NPCA, and
Right.
but it's the region that commented on the septic, right?
That's a region that wanted it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the region, that's right. Sorry. You would have to speak to them, but if that's what they're asking for, they just
We
want to
aren't
make
at-
sure that the new that the flows can be, that the addition can accommodate the sewage flows. So
Correct.
if
But
there's any building, I think if there's, their records indicate the sewage system is from 2014. And when they inspected it, they didn't see any visual defects. But the proposed addition will result in increased flowage, sewage flow. So that's why they're asking that system be installed to address that.
correct.
So
But
they don't feel it's adequate the way it is now.
yeah, they believe it isn't adequate the way it is.
The property contains sufficient usable land for a new septic. Yeah, they're just saying it's not,
Okay.
with your addition, that it will need a new septic.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I'm sure, it might be able to be added to as well, but I can work
Yeah.
with the region.
yeah,
on
you'll
that.
work, yeah, and I think that'll be, kind of at the building permit stage, but
Right.
it will need to be addressed. It'll be a condition that's addressed by the
Okay.
yourself, so.
Yep. Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on the application? Please raise your virtual hand.
Chair, I'm seeing no one that wishes to speak to this application.
All right, thank you. I'll declare the public hearing on this file closed. So I would ask the members if they would like to express their views on this application. David?
I'll be in favor of this minor variance. It meets the 4 tests, and what's being asked are minor in nature, and I don't have any issues with that.
Okay, thank you. Ken?
Mr. Chair, I concur with my fellow member.
Okay, thank you. I would ask someone then, or David, to make a motion on this file.
I'll put a motion forward that minor variance file number A18-21 be accepted with the conditions set forth by the region and the NPCA.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, your application has been approved. You will receive written notice of the committee's decision, and the decision will become final so long as no appeals are received within 20 days of the notice. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next file is A1921, 3067 Thunder Bay Road. Cider Brothers Builder is the applicant. You're going to stick around for a few more, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Kara, could you read the correspondence of this application, please?
The purpose and effect of this application is to permit an addition to an existing non-conforming dwelling, which is located in the hazard zone within a 30-meter setback from the 1 in 100-year flood elevation. The request to permit an expansion of a non-conforming use falls under the purview of Section 45(2)AI of the Ontario Planning Act. The 4 tests for minor variance aren't applicable. However, planning staff offer the following analysis to assist the committee in regard to this request. The proposal relates to expansion of an existing non-conforming use. The dwelling located at 3067 Thunder Bay Road exists. The proposed additions are located in the north and east side of the dwelling. It will not expand the existing footprint of the structure closer towards the waterfront. As this application seeks to expand a non-conforming use within an area regulated by the NPCA, the Committee of Adjustment should review their comments as to whether this proposal results in any human health or safety property issues. The subject property is designated environmental protection due to the area being identified as a natural hazard area under the regulation of the NPCA. This proposal is consistent with Section 4.3 of the official plan, which speaks to requirements that are to be considered when an expansion or enlargement of a non-conforming use is proposed. This proposal meets these requirements as a small expansion of the building footprint and the gross floor area will not unduly aggravate the existing situation nor introduce undue nuisances in the area. The additions will not expand the dwelling towards Lake Erie shoreline. Adequate parking is available on site and the parcel is already fully serviced. The intent of prohibiting the new residential uses in the hazard zone is to protect human health and safety and to protect buildings from flooding. In general, non-conforming uses are not permitted to expand in order to prevent unwanted impacts on surrounding conforming properties. In this case, the proposal to permit an expansion of the existing non-conforming dwelling is reasonable, provided that the MPCA confirms that the proposed addition does not increase the risk of flooding. The proposed additions are not anticipated to have any negative impacts on other residential uses in the surrounding area. Other similar non-conforming residential uses are common along the Lake Erie waterfront, and this proposal will not result in undue impacts on the use of these lands. The dwelling located is currently within the shoreline hazard and regulated by the MPCA and therefore falls under their mandate. The Planning Act provides that the minor variance that's asked for in this application as well must meet the following four tests. Is it minor in nature? Is the proposed variance considered desirable and appropriate for the use of the development in land and buildings? Does the proposal meet the intent of the zoning bylaw? And does it meet the intent of the Ridgeway and Thunder Bay secondary plan? Staff have noted that the four tests of the planning of the minor variance are met, and the proposal to expand the non-conforming dwelling and reduce the setback to 1 in 100-year flood elevation as proposed, as was confirmed by the MPCA, that there are no adverse risks, can be supported. Infrastructure had no further comments, nor did the building, nor did the fire department, nor did MTO. The NPCA did offer comments, which have been provided to the applicant and the committee, that they have no objections to the application, provided that the work permit is obtained by the MPCA for the proposed addition as it is within the MPCA regulated area. And that concludes, that would be your only condition from the MPCA of the application.
Thank you. Mr. Sider, do you have any comments on the application or any of the correspondence?
No, I don't.
Okay. Ken, do you have any questions of Mr. Sider?
Through the chair, no, I do not.
David, do you have any questions?
No, I do not.
And I do not. I would ask anyone in the audience now to, who wishes to comment, please raise their virtual hand.
Chair, I'm seeing no one that wishes to speak to this application.
Okay, thank you. I'll declare the public hearing closed, and I'll ask the members to express their views on this application. I'll start with Ken.
Mr. Chair, I'll be voting in favor of approving this minor variance application. I was quite interested by the fact that it is a existing situation, but the expansion is away from the Fort Erie, which had its own impact on how the planning tests were applied. Even so, we can see that the four tests are being met, and saving for the one condition by the MPCA, the applicant is in favor of all of the planning reports.
Okay, thank you. David?
I'll also be in favor of this application this evening. It meets the four tests.
Okay, thank you. I'll now entertain a motion. Ken?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that in consideration of the written and oral submissions, that minor variance file A19/21 for 3067 Thunder Bay Road meets the Planning Act tests for minor variance, and that it be approved with the stated conditions.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, thank you. Your application has been approved. You will receive written notice of committee's decision, and the decision will become final so long as no appeals are received within 20 days of the notice. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next application is minor variance A2021. The address is 3565 Yard Harbor Road. Applicant is Sider Brothers, and the agent is Sean Sider. So Kara, I would ask if you could read all correspondence and comments received, please.
Purpose and effect of this application is to request a decrease to the required setback from the 1 in 100-year flood elevation in order to construct a single detached dwelling and an in-ground swimming pool. Variances are also requested to permit the reduced interior side yard setback to the east property line and an increased maximum height for the proposed two-story dwelling. The application requests the following regulations: interior side yard setback for a one-story dwelling from 2 meters to 1.5, Minimum setback 1 in 100-year flood elevation from 30 meters to 24 meters for the dwelling and 20 meters to the pool. And that the maximum height of the dwelling is increased from 9 to 10.1 meters. Planning staff note that the proposed in-ground pool does not meet the zoning bylaw definition of a building, as it does not have 4 walls and a roof. Therefore, the proposed in-ground pool is not subject to the 30-meter setback in the 1 in 100-year floodplain regulations. Staff also note that the application requests permission to permit an increase in the height to 10.10 meters for the proposed dwelling. The waterfront residential zone limits the maximum height of dwellings to 9 meters. Planning staff have reviewed the applicant's plans and note that this variance is not required. In accordance with the zoning bylaw, building height is calculated based on the total height from the finished grade to peak of roof along the front elevation of the dwelling. While the grade on site lowers towards the waterfront, the total height of the dwelling at the front elevation facing Yacht Harbor Road is 8.92 meters. The proposed variance height therefore meets the zoning bylaw requirement. Several area residents provided comments in opposition to the requested variances. The main points are summarized below with responses from planning staff. Increased height of the dwelling. Several residents expressed concern that the proposal to increase the maximum height of the dwelling to 10.10 meters, that it appears to be 3 stories in height. As noted above, the zoning bylaw measures the height of the building at the front elevation of the dwelling, which is the Thunder Bay Road facade, from finished grade to the peak of roof. The perceived increase in height and 3-story building height recalls that the lot grading sloped downward as one moves closer to the waterfront. From a planning perspective, the dwelling is considered to be a 2-story dwelling, and the proposed height meets the zoning bylaw requirement of 9 meters at the front elevation. The 3rd level is a basement walkout. The requested variance to increase the maximum height is therefore not required, and planning staff do not support the increase in height on the application. The reduced interior side yard setback. Several residents expressed concern that the requested variance to permit a reduced side yard setback of 1.5 meters for the proposed 2-story. Planning staff note that the side yard setback on the west side meets the 2-meter requirement. The proposed side yard setback on the east side has 2 points where the setback to the east lot line narrows to 1.7 meters at the narrowest point. The majority of the east side yard exceeds the 2-meter requirement. At the front of the dwelling, the interior side yard setback is approximately 2.6 meters. As the applicant site plan indicates that the narrowest setback is 1.7 meters, planning staff would only support a reduction to 1.7 meters on the east side of the property and only for the building footprint as illustrated on the sketch. If approved, staff recommends that a condition be added which relates to the approval of the site plan submitted with the application. Staff will also ask that a grading plan be provided that demonstrates that the proposed setback is sufficient for drainage and that it will not result in adverse drainage impacts on the property to the east. Several residents are in opposition to the proposed reduction of the 30-meter setback requirement to the 1 in 100-year flood line. Planning staff note that the intent of the zoning regulation requiring a 30-meter setback from the 1 in 100-year flood elevation is to ensure that buildings along the waterfront are adequately protected from the risk associated with the hazard area along Lake Erie shoreline, wave uprush, erosion hazard, and shoreline flooding hazard. Under the current planning framework in Ontario, regulation of hazard lands are under the mandate of the conservation authorities. In this case, the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority. Many dwellings along the Lake Erie waterfront in the town of Fort Erie exist within that 30-meter elevation, and staff note that the 30-meter setback is a general provision that may not be necessary in all instances. The town's position on this setback may be reduced via minor variance on a case-by-case basis, provided the MPCA confirms that the proposed development is outside of the hazard area along the shoreline, is therefore adequately protected from foreseeable risk of flooding and erosion hazards. Staff also note that the requested variance for the in-ground pool is not required as the pool is not considered a building under the zoning bylaw. Several residents noted that the proposal will negatively affect their view of Lake Erie. Planning staff note that the town zoning bylaw does not regulate nor guarantee the right of view over private property. However, the proposed dwelling is aligned similarly to existing dwellings on either side, and it is not anticipated to significantly impact view sheds of Lake Erie. The Planning Act provides that the test for minor variance must be met. Is the variance minor in nature? Planning staff note the applicant's sketch indicates that the eastern interior side yard setback is at 1.7 meters at its narrowest point. Staff are of the opinion that 1.7 side yard setback only at certain pinch points is sufficient for maintenance, access on the side yard, and will not impose undue massing and impacts to the parcels to the east. The setback to the dwelling from the 1 in 100 year line confirms that the proposal is outside this hazard area. Development of a single detached dwelling in the parcel is desirable and appropriate for the area, provided the dwelling is not located within the hazard area along Fort Erie waterfront, and comments should be noted from the MPCA. Does the proposal meet the intent of the zoning bylaw? Reduced interior side yard setback. This proposal meets this intent, provided a grading plan demonstrates that there is sufficient space for drainage on the east side. Staff are of the opinion that a setback of 1.7 on the east side is adequate for maintenance, access, and provides adequate separation from the dwelling on the parcel to the east. Setback from the 1 in 100 year flood elevation. The intent of the flood elevation to protect buildings from risk associated with the natural hazard areas along the Lake Erie waterfront. Planning staff note they should comment refer to the MPCA comments. With respect to the intent of the Ridgeway Thunder Bay plan, it's also recommended they speak to the NPCA. In conclusion, planning staff recommend the approval of the requested reduction to the interior side yard setback on the east side to 1.7 meters with the following condition. A review and approval of a grading plan which demonstrate there's adequate space for drainage, and that the variance to the interior side yard setback only applies to the building footprint as illustrated on the sketch. Planning staff also support the reduced setback to the 1 in 100 year elevation for the dwelling, provided the MPCA confirms the dwelling is located outside the natural hazard area. Planning staff do not support the increase to the building height from 9 meters to 10.1 meters. After review of the submission, the proposal complies with the 9 meter maximum height revision. No comments from infrastructure, from fire, or from building, or from CMP had no comments on it, MTO had no comments. So we did receive 7 letters, which have been provided to the Committee of Adjustment, which I will not read all in detail. And they've also been provided to the applicant. The MPCA provided comments stating that they have no objections to the application for the minor variance, provided that the following are conditions of approval. A survey is provided to show the total limit of construction and that all of the MPCA regulated shoreline hazards, including the erosion hazard, and that a work permit is obtained by the MPCA for the proposed pool and a new shore wall if it is determined that the pool is within the MPCA regulated shoreline hazard area. The work permit shall include a condition that if any vegetation is removed within the shoreline hazard area, then a landscape plan, including native species, will be required. That concludes your application.
Thank you, Kara. Mr. Sider, would you like to comment on the application or any of the correspondence, please?
Yeah, I guess I would like to say a couple things. One is I just hope everybody understands this is just a normal 2-story home. The reason I originally went in for the 10.1 meters was because they told me that I had to take the average grade, but it's just they're just taking it from the street side, and the house is only 8.9 meters, so it's underneath the setback. So it does meet the zoning requirements. There's been a few comments on the sizes of the home, the lot cover, it's within its lot coverage that is allowed for the property. The 1.7 meter setback that we're requesting, the house right now, I know there was the neighbor to the west was complaining about how close it was going to be to his house. Right now, the current house that's on the property is 1.65 meters from the property line. And the one that we're proposing to build is over 2 meters on his side. So I just wanted to, just state that we're actually moving it away from the property line more than the actual house that is there now. And there was some comments about 24 meters back for the 1 in 100 year. And there were some complaints about that as well. But if you look at the lakefront there at the mapping looking down, like we are not moving further than the neighbor next door that has filed an email. We're actually stepped back further than his property. And also he has a pool as well there, and the pool that we are proposing to put in will be further back than his pool, and it's right next door. So I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware of what we're doing there. I think just because there was the variance with the height, I think everybody was thinking I was some massive house. But I just wanted to confirm that, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the committee members have any questions? Ken?
I just want to confirm, sorry. Through the chair, I just want to confirm that the 1.7 is agreeable to the applicant for the side variance.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine, Ken. I guess how we went to 1.5 is they always say just to give yourself a little bit of lenience, but we're perfectly fine to go with the 1.7. That's no problem at all.
Secondly, I was curious about the height and how it was determined the house to be actually within the bylaw for height. I'm thinking that you were told it was the average of the grading. So where would that average be taken, from the street to the actual shoreline, or just the imprint, the footprint of the house?
Well, planning department come back to me and said it actually doesn't go by average grade, it goes by the front yard. But I was thinking it had to be, because I've done one before and they asked me to go by average grade. So average grade, what I figured would have been from the very front of the house on the roadside down to the walkout basement on the back of the house. Since it's a walkout basement, that's why we had to go for the extended height. But then, it didn't really make sense, but I was doing it anyways. But yeah, from the street side, it is within the 9-meter height.
And the last question, Mr. Chair, is interested about the shoreline protection wall. I haven't had the privilege of actually be down on that Lake Erie side of any of those homes. What kind of impact do you see as having on neighboring properties of having to construct a shoreline protection wall if necessary?
Are you asking me, Ken?
Through the chair, yes, please.
Yeah. So right now there's walls being built down there, but the wall, I know the MPCA had mentioned that there had to be a wall built. It was if we were building within their limits, but we are not proposing the pool to be in their limits. So MPCA is not requiring us to build a wall.
Oh, okay. I guess the condition then, if I may, Mr. Chair, is just to ensure that you are not building within that shoreline hazard area then, correct?
Yes, like I kind of don't understand their comments, because I've talked to MPCA about it, and I actually, on the application, it shows that we are out of the limit, but for some reason their comments still, I don't know if they just aren't 100% sure or what, but it shows right on there where the MPCA flood limit is, and we are not in it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. David, do you have any questions?
Just one comment, Sean. So I guess in theory, if you're going to get a survey and submit the surveyed plans to the town with where the building is going to go, that is going to suffice with the condition from the NPCA, I would assume, right? Because it doesn't have to be specifically to the NPCA, it just has to be a survey. So if you're going to submit a survey to the town with everything on it, you could submit that at the same time, correct?
Correct. Yeah, and I've already submitted this all to Jessica at the MPCA as well. So
although they're saying that they want that as a condition, and I don't really want to remove the condition, it's not going to be difficult and costly for you to have that condition met, seeing as how you're going to have to do it anyways, correct?
Yeah, like I guess I think what they're trying to do, the MPCA, is they just want to make sure that I don't end up moving the pool further forward. And if I do, then I have to go through a permit
Yeah.
to do that. But I have submitted the drawings and the owner, of where it is supposed to be placed. And as of now, it's not within the setback
Okay.
hazard for the MPCA.
That's all the questions I had, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Just a question on the pool. Is the pool going to be in roughly the same place as your neighbor to the west? Because he has a pool.
Yeah, so the neighbor to the west, his pool is actually going to be significantly closer to the water. If you look at the survey, we are staying within that blue line, the 1 in 100 year line, and the line kind of jogs up on this person's my customer's property. So the pool to the west side is actually going to be quite a bit closer to the lake.
Okay, thank you. Okay, does anyone have any further questions? If not, I'll ask if anyone in the audience wishes to comment, please raise your virtual hand.
So for those joining by computer, laptop, or mobile device, you can do this by pressing the raise hand button. And to do this, you can click on the icon labeled participants at the bottom center of your computer or phone screen. And at the bottom of that window, you can click the button labeled raise hand. And if we do have anybody joining by telephone, you can raise your virtual hand by pressing *9. So I will just wait to see if we have anybody respond. Chair, I'm seeing no one that wishes to speak to this application.
Okay, thank you. If that's the case, I'll declare the public hearing regarding this file closed, and I'll ask the members to express their views on the application.
Mr. Chair, I'll be in favor of this minor variance. It meets the 4 tests, and I believe Sean has sufficiently answered the questions that we had for him this evening, so I don't have any issues with it.
Okay, thank you. Ken?
Mr. Chair, I agree with my fellow member and that the applicant is supportive of the actual conditions that have been placed, or at least can be met very easily. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And just for clarification, we're ruling on the 1.7 meter setback, correct?
Correct.
And as far as the height, I guess we can just refuse that. It doesn't really make any difference, correct? So, okay, with that.
Mr. Chair, you can refuse it, or the applicant can withdraw it formally, and you have a motion to accept his withdrawal of it. Or you could refuse it.
Okay. Sean, would you like to?
I don't need it, so I guess that's up to you guys how you want to do that.
So it would be easier to withdraw it?
Sure. Yeah, I'll withdraw it if that's easier.
All right, very good. Okay, if that's the case, then I would ask for a motion. David?
I'll put a motion forward that minor variance file number A20-21 be accepted with the conditions set forth in the town report and from the MPCA.
I'll second the
Is there a
motion.
seconder? All in favor? Okay, thank you. Your application has been approved. So you receive written notice of the committee's decision, and the decision will become final so long as no appeals are received within 20 days of the notice. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time, everyone. Appreciate it.
Okay. The next application is minor variance file A2121, and the address is 6 Maple Leaf Avenue South. The applicant, Peters Construction Group, and Mr. Murray or Ms. Murray? Darren, okay. Mr. Murray will be acting as the agent.
Hello, everyone.
Good afternoon. Are you ready to proceed, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Then I'll ask Kara to read all correspondence related to this application, please.
The purpose and effect of this application is to request a reduction to the minimum front yard setback and an increase to the maximum lot coverage to facilitate the construction of a one-story single detached dwelling. Planning staff note that the application does meet the 4 tests of a minor variance, that it is minor in nature, that it is desirable and appropriate for the development of the land and buildings, and that the proposal meets the general intent of the zoning bylaw and the official plan. Based on the comments received in the report, planning staff support the requested variances. No comments from infrastructure, from building, from fire, from the MTO. And we did receive late comments today from a resident in the area who is in opposition that the variance request to increase lot coverage of the dwelling from the permitted 30% to 44%. The requested 44% is a lot closer to 50% than it is permitted 30%, and this is why other variances requested are also required. This is not an excessively large lot. Mine is the same size, and I think coverage should be considerate of that. It is also a corner lot siding on a fairly busy road for the area. This lot is located in an older neighborhood, which is already well established. Most of the houses in this area are of low height profile and cover a lot of area considerate to the size of their lot. And I think these new builds on these newer, smaller lots should be considerate of the more established neighborhoods in which they are located. It's bad enough that this appears to be happening in some of the newer subdivisions being constructed in our area. By permitting all these excessive variances for house construction in this area, we are setting a precedence allowing builders to get carried away, consuming more and more of the land around here and taking advantage of this nice area. Finding balance with growth is important, and I'm not sure that if that's what's happening here. It's very disappointing to see as a resident. That concludes the comments.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Murray, would you like to comment on the application or any of the correspondence?
Sure. Just the individual is opposing the minor variance. It's an actual 44%. It's not 50%. And that 10% of that is actually the front porch and the rear porch. So the house with the garage is actually 33.8%.
Okay,
That's all.
thank you.
Thank you.
Do any of the members have any questions? Ken?
I do not, Mr. Chair.
I do not, Mr. Chair.
And I have no questions. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on the application? Please raise your virtual hand.
Chair,
You want to comment?
yeah, I can confirm that we
Emma?
don't have anybody to speak to this application. We just have our agent for the next few applications left, so
Okay,
no
thank
members of the public.
Then I'll declare the public hearing portion of this closed, and I'll ask the members to express their views. Ken?
Mr. Chair, I'll be voting in favor of approving the minor variance. It meets the 4 tests of the planning for a minor variance.
Thank you. David?
I will also be in favor of it this evening. I agree with Ken. It does meet the 4 tests, and I don't have any issue with it.
Okay, thank you. We'll ask for a motion then. Ken?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that in consideration of all the written and oral submissions, that minor variance file A 21/2146 Maple Leaf Avenue South meets the Planning Act tests for minor variance and that it be approved.
Okay, a seconder?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Okay, thank you. Your application has been approved, sir. You will receive written notice of the committee's decision, and the decision will become final so long as no appeals are received within 20 days of the notice. So thank you very much for appearing.
Great. Thank you very much, and everyone have a good night.
You too.
Okay.
Okay, the final application tonight is minor variance files A2321 to A2921. Address is Black Creek Signature, Phase 1, lots 42, 43, 44, 45, 48, 50, and 50, Block 50 and Block 52. Applicant is Upper Canada Consultants. It's Mr. Kernahan, if that's correct.
Hi, Matt. If you're able to hear us, please unmute yourself. You should get a prompt requesting to unmute yourself.
I just texted him to see if he's having technical troubles.
Oh, there we go.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Not a problem. Are you ready to proceed?
I am. Thank you very much, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
thanks. Kara, could you read all correspondence, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and the applicant, seeing there's no members of the attendance, I'm just going to do a quick brief summary as everyone's already been provided with the comments. Is that okay, everyone? Matt, you want me to read it thoroughly?
Suits me just fine, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, sir. The purpose and effect of these applications are to request an increase in the maximum lot coverage for 4 semi-detached dwellings in a 5-unit on-street townhouse block. A reduction in the rear yard setback for the proposed 1.5 meter elevated decks for a semi-detached dwelling and a 4-unit on-street townhouse block. And lastly, reduction of the rear yard setback for a 4-unit on-street townhouse block. Staff have reviewed it and have decided that it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act in that it is minor in nature, it is desirable and appropriate for the development of land and buildings, meets the general intent of the zoning bylaw and of the official plan, and I am support of the variances. No comments were received from any other building departments in objection or from the public. And that concludes.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to comment on the applications? Mr. Kernahan?
Thanks for the opportunity, Mr. Chair. As always, staff's done a stellar job with their report, so I don't have anything to add other than to offer to answer any questions the committee has.
Okay, thank you. Dave, do you have any questions of the application? Or of the applicant, sorry?
I do not.
Ken, do you have any questions?
I do not, Mr. Chair.
And I have no questions. And we have no one in the,
I can confirm it that there's no one in the attendee waiting room at the moment.
okay, thank you. If that's the case, I'll declare the public hearing portion closed, and I'll ask the members to express their views on this application.
I'll be in favor of this evening. It meets the 4 tests and the town's in favor of it and it's in good planning and I have no issue with it.
Okay, thank you, Ken.
I concur with my fellow member, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. And in doing the motion, Kara, can we do the whole group?
Yes, it's fine. You can do a motion, all files, like make a motion to approve A23 to A29.
Okay,
Just so the applicant is aware, there will be a decision, notice of decision for each file sent to him for his records and for each property. So, but you can read them all together.
okay, great. Ken, could you,
I'll do it, Ken.
oh, okay, Dave, go ahead.
Oh, fight over it.
I forgot what, I had a senior moment. Sorry.
You forgot where you were. It's all right. I'll put a motion for the minor variance file number A23-21 through to A29-21 be accepted.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Okay, your applications have been approved. You receive written notice of the committee's decision, and the decision will become final so long as no appeals are received within 20 days of the notice. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. May I ask for a motion from the committee to process the signing of the decisions concurred by the majority of the members electronically?
So moved.
Seconder?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Now I ask if members have any correction, or are we asking that?
No, there's no minutes to correct yet.
All right.
I would like to ask any members if they would like to do the minutes for the last 3 meetings. Going once, going twice.
I make a motion that Ken does it.
I will endeavor to get them done for the next one and get them out to you guys. So
So if there's no further business, the meeting was adjourned at